if you knew someone who was similarly facing kind of persecution or losing their friends or alienating people for taking a stance against something that they knew was a lie, or knew was wrong, or knew was oversimplifying things, or denying the full humanity of people, how would you give them support, and what would you advise them?
Oh gosh, we need a support group for these people. I'm not kidding. Like a whistleblower support group. I think this is a hypothetical. I think I want to alter the angle a little bit, because
Sure.
I hear from a lot of people, because once you do that and you become public, it's kind of like then a lot of people write to you and say, I'm thinking about doing the same thing. How can I do this?
Sure.
It's often, I think, the time for support. Certainly people need support if they're being persecuted and have taken a stand and have social censure or lost their livelihood. But I think the more support is needed before that moment comes, in building one's courage to even get to that point. By the time somebody, in my experiences with myself and talking to other people, by the time somebody gets to the point where they actually stand up and say something, they've gone through a long thought process and weighed the pros and cons, and have validated that what they are thinking is not crazy.
Yeah.
That's really hard when you're in an environment where everyone's saying the sky is red, and you're like, no, it's blue, and you're afraid to say it's blue because you're afraid you're going to get persecuted. So I found that more support's needed before the moment of standing up and speaking out. And so to those people who are thinking about this, who feel like something's wrong and they want to say something, they don't know how to start or where to begin, I think the most important thing is to find one other person, preferably in the same environment as you are, your work, whether it's your workplace or school, wherever it is that this thing is happening, and start talking to that person. And sometimes it can be hard to find those people because you don't know who the true believers are. You don't know who the dissidents are. So it takes a little stealth. It takes a lot of thought and a lot of strategy. It takes talking to people behind closed doors, feeling them out. But usually once that line
There's a
gets
crack.
crossed,
Yeah.
once you crack it, it's like a dam breaking. It all comes out, and it's very bonding. And just one other person can make all the difference. I knew somebody I know, she started talking with me before she did anything, and I told her just one other person, and she found one other person, and then she found another person, and then she found another person, and now she has this organization in Canada for parents. And she said it really did start with finding one other person, because you really need that validation that you're not crazy and that you're right, because you really doubt that. I really doubted it. So I know that doesn't answer your question totally, but I tend to think that that's where the most support is needed. But by the time somebody stands up and says something, they're kind of they've already really decided that I know what I'm doing is right. I mean, you have to have a lot of conviction to stand up against that tide. And so by the time that conviction's built,
so it's like the solidarity
much support
to get to that point.
Yeah, to
and the
kind
support
of validate your experience, because we're being told to deny the experience of our own senses, really.
Yeah.
So, and then after, when you come out like that, I think reaching out to other people who've done it, that's helped me a lot. I mean, Paul Rossi and Andrew Gutman, and now Nicole Lovitz has a case. Like, we find each other eventually. It's a small world with social media and all that. And we find each other. We have a loose network of support. So we're out here.
Yeah. And you guys are so different, but you're united by your...
Yeah, it's extremely bonding.
Yeah, by your independent spirit.
But like, in some ways we're the same. I mean, people who stand up and do this, there's something, I think, I go back to my speech, like, I think it's people who have spent a long time trying to, like, suss out, wait a minute, do I really think that? Or did that, like, is this feeling a bad feeling, or is it okay? Does it mean something else than what I'm being told? I think people who have put a lot of work into themselves. This ideology is really forcing our hands, that's for sure. We're seeing who the free people are and who they aren't.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to be free. I think this is something that we work on, and then the moment comes, the moment to be called, and you either already have it or you don't. So you don't just get it in one moment.
But what, I mean, this courage to stand up against these lies and to speak out and say what you know to be true, why do some people have it and some people don't? Where does it come from? You know, what resources are you drawing on, you personally, or maybe what you see in other people when you draw on that?
I don't know. I think it's a combination.
Like, what do you
of
do
many
it for?
traits. What?
What do you do it for? Or why do you do it?
Oh my gosh. I have a hard time, and I think other people who have done this are similar, with inauthentic situations.
Yeah.
I have a very hard time with like elephants in the room.
Yeah.
Kind of situations, and like these like something's happening but nobody's talking about it, like that kind of thing. I just really, I know it's probably uncomfortable for everyone, but for me, I've kind of always had that tendency, like, let's just talk about this. Like, the reality is something's going on here, so let's just talk about it and clear it out and move on. It's kind of, otherwise there's just always this wedge between you and other people.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, just because it's fake. It's a bunch of people pretending that something's true and going along with it for whatever their own reasons are. Like, they know it's fake, but they don't want to lose their job. I guess they're okay doing that. And I was okay with it for a while, but it got worse and worse. And I heard about things that were happening to my colleagues that were really, really unjust and abusive.
Do you think that people who know it's fake outnumber the true believers? Or do you think that there are a lot of people?
Depends on where. At Smith College? I think it depends on where. I mean, geographical regions are so different. I tend to think they are. I tend to think that people know it's fake. Or at least there's these people, my friend calls them woke around the edges, where they they kind of like I was, like I guess this sounds like social justice. That sounds like a good thing. Like, I guess, but they don't quite understand. Like, but I'm not really quite understanding how this is going to achieve. Like, but what is social justice? Like, I don't know. Like, they kind of go along with it, but they're not. They're kind of confused in this state of confusion. They can't quite grasp what it is, because it's never been explained. It's never defined.
Yeah.
These terms are never defined. There's never a hoped for outcome that the institution says, this is what we're hoping to achieve, and here are the measures we're going to take to achieve it, and here's how we're going to measure whether or not we're getting there. I mean, that's normal. That's what you do in education. We this is the objective. Here's how we're going to get to it, and we're going to measure to see if we're getting there. That's completely absent in this discussion. It's just social justice.
It's just this nebulous perpetual revolution.
Yeah, so we're left with this vague notion, like, okay, I guess somebody has to tell me what to do, because I'm not really clear on what this is, and you're afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Because you're afraid that might put a spotlight on you, like, oh, so doesn't know what social justice is.
Yeah.
They must be racist.
Yeah. So just one more quick question, and then I'll let you go to the bar. But you said in one interview, I think, something interesting, that you wouldn't have the courage to take all these risks and burn bridges and do these things if it weren't for your children, and that you were doing it in a way for your sons.
Yeah.
What can you say a little more about what you meant by that?
It's complicated, because whose life, our lives are changed
Sure, yeah.
Irrevocably.
Irrevocably, I think. Irrevocably, yeah.
By having children. First of all, I probably never would have become a librarian if I didn't have children.
Yeah.
I never would have settled down. Probably never would have moved to Northampton. So, and if I didn't have children and I was in Northampton and this happened, I'd probably just be like, see ya, I'm out, I quit, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do that because I had family to support. So I was stuck, and I think a lot of people are in that situation. It's a lot different when you're single and you're just responsible for yourself. I mean, it's one thing to lose your job then, but to lose your job when you have a family, that's a big, much bigger stakes situation. So I don't know why I said all that, but I think about my children a lot, and I think about the world that they're poised to inhabit should this thing continue to run amok.
And by this thing, you mean?
I mean this idea. What if people call it all kinds of different things? Woke, social justice ideology, critical theory, the whole thing, the whole bag of messed up.
Anti-racism.
Yeah, anti-racism, and also I'm going to throw in here COVID mandates.
Okay.
That's part of it. A lot of people don't, and the gender stuff too. It's all related, and I've been developing a speech or a talk or something about explaining to people how they're related, and I didn't think they were at first, but I thought about it a lot, and I think I came up with a good way to convey that they're related. Anyway, I want to throw that in there. Yeah, I want my sons they're white males. Are they straight? I don't know. Does it matter? It shouldn't. But we're now living in a world where my son's skin color and sexuality and sex are somehow going to influence their lives in a negative way if this keeps going. So yeah, I'm doing it for my kids, and I didn't. Part of it was for me. I couldn't live with the psychic pain of lying anymore and pretending, but I also didn't want my kids to see me living like that. I wanted them to see me, as painful as it was going to be, telling the truth, because I want them to tell the truth. So I guess it was a role model thing.
Awesome.